this is just an example of our repair and reinforcement procedure on the E46 chassis, and the lengths we go to be a bit different and make a longer lasting repair, something that's going to stand the test of time. Just a quick example of what we think is different and what we believe is better than others out there. This is a steel grey vehicle, E46 M3. It's just had the lacquer applied after the colour-coded paint, so you'll notice that we go everywhere, all on the rear axle carrier panel, into the wheel arches as well, which will show a bit better later on. That's just what we call that's like our own internal bracket there that gets changed for the customer's one after, so we can overspray on that, it don't matter. And obviously we can't go everywhere, we can't do the entire thing, so that's why there's corrosion in other places like fuel tank brackets and up on the battery blocks. We can't go everywhere, that's not part of the procedure, but we still do far greater amount of corrosion protection and paint colouring and lacquer protection than other repairs out there. And we do any colour the customer wants, whether it be body colour like this, steel grey, or whether it be a Mola red or Laguna Seca blue, or just black if people want black because they don't want the body coloured paint done. It's hard to pick up on a phone, but you should see some sort of shine off of this, which is the lacquer reflection, which obviously you wouldn't normally get underneath the vehicle. If you normally see underneath your vehicle, you might see that sort of beige sealer finish. That's sort of roughly how dirty they are when they come in. And then we do an extensive degrease process all the way into that fuel tank area, which is why that's nice and clean up there. And all the way through the rear axle carrier panel. And it degrease the entire wheel arch areas, get rid of all the dust, debris, mud and everything, all the way up into the lips as well. And then once we do the reinforcement work and the repair work, then we will wire wheel corrosion areas back to bare metal, especially on these fuel tank and brake pipe brackets. No point painting anything on top of rusty, flaky corrosion because it's only going to come off again. We want our vehicles to stay like this for years to come. So on the bare metal there'll be an etch primer, then there'll be a high build primer, then there'll be a sprayable seam sealer. You can see around the edges of these front plates we do a very high pressure, low volume spray of sprayable seam sealer just to make sure that the weld lines are sealed. And then when we go round to the rear plates, then we do a high volume, low pressure spray to get that textured finish. And that's all sprayed from a pneumatic application gun. Very hard, durable wearing, automotive underbody sprayable seam sealer. All the way into the seams as well up here, around the spring turret, especially around this left rear lip. This one's a problematic area where the spot welds fell, so those get belt sended out, so then we do a plug weld on the inside, and then we do a stitch weld continuous around this lip here where the shock absorber sits. That gets welded together so it holds the rear axle carrier panel to the inner wheel arch, and then we run that back flat, and again that gets the full protection. Then a sprayable seam sealer to try and replicate the factory finish, so that's the factory sort of sealer, fairly flat. You see a lot of brush strokes in the factory stuff. And then we build ours up layer by layer to make it durable. Then we do a very light coat of high build primer on top of the sprayable seam sealer. The sprayable seam sealer is left overnight, sort of 24 hours to cure off, sometimes less depending on the humidity. And then we can apply the colour coded paint, so that goes all the way over the rear axle carrier panel, up into the trailing arm sections, over the lipped edges of the panel, in the little area where the diff snout sits, and up into the wheel arches. Obviously areas are masked up, and you should get a nice shine on this picture, which is showing the lacquer reflecting the light back into the camera. And obviously being it lacquer like the outside of the vehicle, water will just bead off of this. We've been doing it like this for a long time, so we know it reacts, and we see cars back that have had our work and they're so easy to keep clean. Just a slight light hose off underneath the vehicle. No point using a high pressure system, but just a light hose off, and it's very easy to keep everything clean like this. And then there'll be the lacquer application. which obviously gives us this added protection and a deep shine. And then we move on to the cavity protection. So we take obviously all the cavity bungs out, like you can see, and we go up through all the known areas with long straws to do a wax protection all over the back of the panel where we've done our welding work, so that there's nothing left bare inside there. Extremely well protected. And then we'll also wax these seam joints that we know are high spot areas for corrosion. That's our sealer applied once we've removed all the corrosion. So we just neaten things up. We'll wax all inside the spring turret holes, and then especially in the rear cavities as well. And we'll wax on the outside cavity where these weld lines are, and then we'll go on to do the structural resin injection from inside the boot at a later stage. There's a nice example of the wax. We do yellow cavity wax, so you can see inside some of the areas there, the hidden areas, and up through that hole there to get all the back of the welded plates. And you can see how it's coming out one of the flutes there, that yellow trace. And then also we do a transparent wax over the external components, which is that whitey sort of looking wax. That's actually, as it goes on, it's white, but it dries transparent, so you don't actually see it. Another thing to note as well is how much we remove the vehicle. Obviously it's quite standard that you have to remove the fuel tank to do it successfully and safely. People do try without, but it's obviously a little bit of a hazard, so that's always removed. And as you can see here, the brake lines are always removed so that they're not sprayed over. It just looks messy, we think, when they're sprayed over, so they're out of the way and protected. This one's a shame. This vehicle has already got copper lines that it's been replaced years ago. Normally we'd always stick to the BMW steel powder coated ones and then paint protect them and wax them, but this vehicle's got some copper ones, but that's then protected now with the cavity wax, ready to put the grommets back in the various holes.